I wanted to mark the occasion on the day John Lennon was taken from us. And I use the phrase taken from us because obviously he was taken in a violent way. You know, when pop stars typically die young or before their time, it's from a drug overdose or motorcycle accident or something, but this was very different. I mean, none of us expected it. And I don't usually like videos where people get all weepy about it and insert themselves into this giant collective we where we're all supposed to be sad together. And to put his death into proper perspective, you know, I don't think it's a good idea to fall into sort of some kind of grieving melancholy, you know, as if he was a close family friend. Because although the Beatles' music and John Lennon's music moves me, you know, I didn't know the man. But let's talk about what this meant to pop culture and really how it changed the course of the Beatles. You know, when I look back from that day forward, you know, the Beatles really have stayed relevant for the last 40 years. And they've kind of just stayed even. You know, they haven't been way up here. You know, they might have a release that puts them up, that gets people talking about them again. But they never are down here. They always have maintained relevance for these last 40 years. And I think that's very interesting. And the death of John Lennon really began a new Beatle phase. Because up until that point, the preceding 10 years where the Beatles were broken up, all anybody could talk about was, well, when are they going to get back together again? And I never really understood, you know, I was a little too young to be in that conversation. I was just learning about the Beatles. That was still all new to me then. And I never understood, looking back, well, what did they mean by getting back together? What did they expect them to record albums again? Or did they expect them to tour again? Or to just do one concert for charity? I never quite got that, but suffice it to say, once John Lennon was killed, there was no more looking forward to the Beatles, only looking back. In fact, not just the Beatles were revered the last 40 years, but it's almost like that whole period of the 60s was revered because of this. There was a turn, and 20 years had passed since the 60s had started, and that's the time you typically do look back and things start to come back a little bit. But you know, like Marilyn Monroe dying at the height of her beauty, the Beatles now had done the same thing. They were encapsulated in that frame of the 60s, and they never really, those guys weren't even together in the same room after 1969. So indeed, that is a preservation for us. They knew reforming in any way would have been very difficult, because when they were the Beatles, they always were a step ahead of everybody else in terms of style and what they were bringing new to music. Even outside of music, they were always a step ahead. And they didn't quite plan it that way. That's just how they were. But to regroup as the Beatles would be a step back, I believe. And I think they may have been tempted to do it. Particularly, you know, would the anthology have happened if John Lennon had lived? Now, as much as John Lennon would talk disparagingly about the Beatles myth and try to destroy that, he destroyed more than he really needed to, but he was also very nostalgic. And he collected Beatle memorabilia, and he collected bootlegs. So I have to imagine that he would have been a willing participant in some kind of anthology had he lived, though maybe it would have never happened. One of the good things about the Beatles never getting back together again is that they really didn't give themselves an opportunity to screw anything up. Because the pressures would have been so high. I mean, they couldn't have done it for the money. It would have had to been an artistic pursuit. You know, not just, even if they got together and loved being together and making music together, I don't know that that would have even been enough. They would have needed something more, because I always seem to need something more. So I don't know how that would have gone. So I do remember that morning when I found out, when I got the bad news. The night before, I had been watching Monday Night Football, but in those days I would go to bed at halftime, so I didn't get the announcement that night. The following morning, I got a call from my buddy Dan. Now, Dan was a kid I grew up with, and he was the one that introduced me to all the Beatles music via his older sister. His sister bought him a bunch of albums, and may God rest her sweet soul, that was Sue. And the morning was a gray, rainy morning. You know, the lights were on in the kitchen because, you know, it was dark. And the morning was a bustling household with my dad with his trench coat on, heading up to the bus stop, and my sisters and I probably eating breakfast with my mom. And I got a call. And the phone was handed to me, the old wall phone in the kitchen, and Dan said, "Matt, did you hear what happened? I don't know if you heard, but John Lennon was killed." And I said, "Oh, no, I didn't hear. Thanks for letting me know." And I ended the call. And I just didn't want to talk about it with everybody around, and I just went into the hallway outside of the kitchen, just kind of stood there by myself in the corner and collected myself. And then I just got on with my morning and went to school, and all the music was playing on the playground. People had radios. And that was the first time where I started to really hear a lot of other Beatle music and the Beatles solo stuff as well, that just got to be, it seemed to creep its way back into radio airplay and getting onto regular playlists. And it was that moment when it seemed like, well, the Beatles, there was a super high level of nostalgia effect that the Beatles had, and that's something that just hasn't gone away. So anyway, I don't have a lot to add to that, but I just wanted to talk about it a little bit and suggest that, put your comments below, because what did the death do to pop culture and to Beatles lore? Because we all feel a loss, I guess, of sorts, even for somebody we don't know. But I'm going to leave you with a few interviews here of John that suggest what things may have been had he lived. Thanks for watching.
Are they ever going to get back together?
Yeah, first of all, is there any possibility? But secondly, much more important, do you think that it's a good idea?
Well, that's another point altogether, whether it'd be a good idea or not. You see, it's strange, because at one period when they're asking me, I was saying, no, never, what the hell, go back, no, not me. And then there came to a period when I thought, well, why not, if we felt like making a record or doing something. Everybody always envisages the stage show. To me, if we were together at studio again, the stage show, something else. If we got something to say in a studio, okay. Now, when I'm saying that, I turn the paper and George is saying, not me, right? It's never got to a position where each one of us have wanted to do it at the same time. I think over the period of being apart, we've all thought, oh, that wouldn't be nice. That wouldn't be bad, I've worked with Ringo. I've worked with Ringo and George. I haven't worked with Paul because we had a more difficult time, but now we're pretty close, So, and the other question is, would it be worth it? But that is answered by if we wanted to do it. If we wanted to do it, then it'd be worth it. If we got in a studio together and thought we turn each other on again, then it would be worth it, And sod the critics, they've got nothing to do with it. The music is the music. If we make a piece that we think was worthwhile, it goes out. But it's such a, it's pie in the sky, I don't care either way, If somebody wants to pull it together, I'll go along, I'm not in the mood to pull it together, that's for sure. I've got too much, I think we all have got too much to do ourselves. But if they were all in town, I'd say, come on down, put them on my record, right? Then it'd be a Beatle record. But if they were around, I jammed with Paul. I did actually play with Paul, yeah. We did a lot of stuff in L.A. But there was 50 other people playing too, and they're all just watching me and Paul,
Yeah. You must be pleased with what Paul's doing now, John.
I'm pleased that everybody's doing well, I'm more pleased that Ringo's doing well, that he's got himself a good niche. Because I knew Paul would be all right. What the hell am I worried about him? I know he's going to be all right.
What do you see?
It's a nice-looking label, right?
Do you see the three of them?
I've seen Paul and George Paul and Ringo a lot this year because they've been over here. Paul was here about a month ago, and I spent a couple of Beaujolais evenings with him reminiscing about when we were only 38. And Ringo I've seen a lot of because he's been over here recording. I was just down in the middle of my album. I just took a break and went down and did a track I'd written for Ringo on his new album. And then I went to Caribou and sang Lucy in the Sky with Elton John, and then came back and finished my album off. So, and Paul and Ringo, George I haven't seen, but he's coming over in October to rehearse. So I'll go and see him then.
Relationships are cordial.
Oh, very warm. Very warm, my dear.
All right.
Are they getting together?
Yes, are they getting together?
Well, we'd have to be on Dark Horse label the way things are going. we never talk about it because the four of us have never got into a room together because of green cards and immigration and all that jazz. George and Paul have a little trouble getting in and out of this country too. And so the four of us have never sat in a room together for 3 years, although we've managed to get 3 together in one room. That was Paul, Ringo and me. That was sometime in the summer, in the middle of Harry's album, actually. And so there's always, you know, if you say no, it's a negative. They all hate each other. If you say yes, it's rolling crawdaddy. Cream says they're getting together, you know, or Harry's bringing them together or something. There's always a chance we'd work together because, you know, if we see each other, we tend to fall into that kind of mood. But I can't see us touring or anything like that. We've never discussed it. I could see us making records. You know, why not? But that touring bit, I don't quite fancy that myself.
Think back during that period of time known as Beatlemania.
Oh, that time.
Are the thoughts happy ones? Are they good ones, John? Or...
Yeah. Most of them are good, you know. I've even forgotten what touring was like. It's pretty good. You know?
What do you mean you forgot? How can you ever forget that experience?
Well, I mean, the bad side of it, I just remember the laughs, you know, and the funny bits. I don't remember the lousy food and that. Mind you, now I talk about it, yes, I think I do.
In the long run, would you consider them happy recollections?
Oh, sure. Right. You know, it was a great experience at 24 or 5, whenever it was, to do all that instead of something else. I couldn't think of anything better to do besides be a fisherman.
Do you miss it?
No, I don't miss it. You know, I've done it. That's enough. I would have hated to wait all my life till I was 50, you know, to make it, as they say.
Do you think you got out of it at a good time, or looking back, do you think maybe you should have gotten out of it earlier, or...
I think if we'd left it any later, it was getting nearly too late, you know.
What do you think, if you could just recall one moment or one period of time during it all?
Yeah.
I'd like to know the highest moment and the lowest moment, when it was its best and when it was its worst.
A couple of high moments, like first time in America.
I'll ask a question. Would you be quiet?
Hearing us on every channel, on, you know, 10 records in the charts or whatever it was. Another high moment was Australia. You know, it's funny, but there was more people came to see us there than anywhere. I mean, it looked like, I think the whole of Australia was there. Low moments are those moments like when Brian died, you know, things like that, which are just, you know, we weren't ready for it. And they were the real low moments, suddenly finding ourselves on our own. You know?
You happier now, do you think, than during all those years?
I'm basically the same, you know. I've had a bit more experience, you know, so maybe I can deal with it maybe 1% better. But I'm pretty much the same, just older. You know?
A lot of people in America still don't really understand why it all ended. 1,000,001 rumors, conflicting stories. If you had to make one statement as to what busted up the Beatles, what ended it, what would you say?
Because we all had basically had enough, and nobody knew how to say it. I mean, we mightn't even have been aware that we'd had enough ourselves. You know, that's why I say maybe we should have finished it a bit sooner.
Since the split, each one of the Beatles has gone his own way and has enjoyed a tremendous amount of popularity, but still the question, will they ever team up again?
It's quite possible, yes. I don't know why the hell we'd do it, but it's possible.
Would you like that to happen?
If it happens, I'll enjoy it.
Would you want to initiate that happening?
Well, I couldn't say.
If you could, I mean, is it something you would like to see yourself doing?
If I could, I don't know, Ellie, because you know me, I go on instinct, and if the idea hit me tomorrow, you know, I might call them and say, come on, let's do something. And so I couldn't really tell you. If it happens, it'll happen. You know.
So it is not something that you would totally rule out as never taking place again?
No, my memories are now all fond, and the wounds are healed, and if we do it, we do it. If we record, we record. I don't know. As long as we make music, you know.
And there's no hard feelings to any member of the group or anything?
No, nobody in particular. No, nobody.
I wish you all the luck with Mind Games.
Thank you.
It's a great record. I like it.
Thank you.
And you?